Good morning, everyone. My name is Taryn, and thank you so much for stopping by my channel, Nicole Flower House. I grow a ton of cut flowers in a raised bed, no dig style flower garden. I'm located in Zone 7B. In today's video, I am planting 8 new David Austin roses. They just came, they are bare root, and I'm so excited. I have quite a bit of work to do to get this first spot prepped and ready to go. I did not think these tulips were going to come back. You may be wondering, why are you planting a rose in a spot that already has a bunch of tulips? Well, I plant my tulips as annuals. Got a little lazy last year and thought that if I buried these tulip bulbs deep enough that there's no way they would come back. I mean, I buried these probably 10 inches deep beneath extra soil that I topped the bed off with and mulch, but sure enough, they popped through. Now I'm going to leave the majority of them just to see what I get. I don't think I'll get healthy blooms, but I just kind of want to see. So anyway, I am taking the time to dig the flower bulbs out of the spot where I'm going to plant the rose. I also have to be really careful to try to get as many of them as I can out of the soil because I don't want tulip bulbs sprouting and growing beneath and messing with the roots of the new plant. So that's what I'm working on here first. You can see this tulip here has a really nice root structure, but the neck was super long and lanky that was growing up through all of that soil and mulch. A little trick I like to use when I'm digging a new hole for something, I like to throw my dirt into a bucket. This way, when you're backfilling, it's really easy to simply get all the dirt back in its spot. I've also scraped the mulch aside first. Since I have mulch pathways, I just throw any extra mulch onto the ground outside of the bed. I do my best to try not to mix the mulch in with the soil. I'm not going to be super particular about it. I just like to get as much of it out of my way before I start digging. Another thing I wanted to accomplish with this project is color blocking. I wanted to plant these roses in a way that made sense so that the colors faded from one into another, almost like an ombre effect. This is going to be a row of roses down each side of the bed, and I just thought this would look so pretty. It's a little bit challenging because I am adding 8 roses, and I already have 4 roses that I planted in somewhat random order. I didn't have the idea of doing the row of roses, the hedge, until this year, and I planted 4 roses last year just in spots that I had available. So the color fade isn't going to be perfect, but my garden is imperfect, so that's okay, and I'll still get something very beautiful. Now, the next bed down the line also has quite a bit of prep work that needs done. There is arugula in here, and as you can see, it's gone to flower. So this arugula needs to come out. We're not really wasting anything by pulling it out, so I'm going to remove it. And you may notice I'm only taking out plants in between the first sets of hoops there, because I'm only planting 1 rose at the end of each box. So I'm just clearing enough space to get that rose in there. On the other side of the arugula, down toward the right, on the right side there, that is cilantro and parsley. I know that's not going to be good in the summer as soon as the heat sets in, but I do like when that goes to flower. And once those plants bolt and go to flower, I will utilize that for my cut flower arrangements, and then I will pull that plant out because the rose will be getting bigger and establishing, and in future years I will not put any annuals in that spot. All right, moving on up the line. The next bed in it has something called an Oya. And I've gotten questions from a few people about what these were in the garden bed. So this one in particular is from a company called Grow Oya. I have it up there on the screen. It's a clay irrigation pot. The spelling on Grow Oya is specific to the company. If you're Googling what an Oya is, I'll put the spelling for that up on the screen. But basically, it's an unglazed clay pot that when you fill it with water, it slowly leaches that water into the garden bed over time to water your plants. The plants also learn where the water is coming from, and their roots will grow around the pot to make it more efficient and less leaky over time. I really like the clay pots. It works well. I found the healthier your soil, the better they work. However, when your plants get really big and grow nicely, sometimes they're hard to access and hard to find. I don't use them as much as I should be, and I'm not sure if I will continue to use them, but for now, they work really nicely. And also, I don't use these on garden beds that have things like bulbs or tubers in them. Now, what you're looking at here are the remains of old squash vines that I buried in the garden bed at the end of fall last season. It's breaking down very nicely. I'm actually surprised at how much this broke down. I didn't want to drag all those vines out and back to my compost, so I just buried them when I was topping off the garden bed. This next bed has a lot more of the vine left in it, so it's a little bit harder to dig, but I'm working through it. And you'll see that because of all that material, there are a ton of worms, nice big worms breaking down that material. Anytime I have a chance to leave organic matter in the soil, I do it because it feeds the worms, it brings in microbial life, and it adds good drainage to your soil. So I just like to take advantage of those opportunities. Now I'll have to keep my eye on this rose in particular. It may need more feeding requirements than the other roses, but the material itself has been aging for at least 6 months, so it'll be fine. That's just one way I like to build soil health in my garden. Now that I have all the holes dug and ready for the roses, it's time to make my plant labels. I'm using a garden marker specifically. It's from gardeners.com, I believe. It just resists rain and sun fading it, so I really like that marker. I'm using my catalog to look at the colors and put the roses in a particular order so I can get that color fade effect when I'm planting them out in the garden. After I have all the tags made, I'm going to place them at each spot so I know which rose needs to go where. Now, as I was digging the holes earlier, I had these bare root roses soaking in water. I'd say probably around 4 or 5 hours. I put them in the water first thing in the morning and let them sit in there the entire time while I was working. The holes I dug earlier weren't perfect. I did have to go back and dig out some more soil, but I had the majority of the holes pretty good. And also, I did not leave the roses sitting out in the sun while I was working on each one. I did roll that cart underneath our deck into the shade so that it would be protected, so the roses wouldn't dry out while I was working. Also, I'm using my shovel to measure the top of the box so I can see how deep the rose is and if I need to adjust it. I am using the planting guide sent by David Austin with the roses to determine how deep to plant these. At this point, I'm just backfilling all the soil that I had set aside when I dug the hole originally, and I'm making sure to firm the soil in really good so there's no air pockets or anything hanging out that could lead these roots to rot. When I measured earlier how deep I wanted to plant the rose, I made a little bit of a mistake in that the soil level was not up to the top of the garden box. So I'm having to add quite a bit of extra soil to make sure this rose is planted at the correct depth. So there were several rounds of soil that I had to go get. Now I did have some extra on hand, which is very lucky that I hadn't used over the fall, so I just went and used that. After I got all the soil in there and it planted at a good level, all the soil is firmed in very well, I added mulch on top. Here is the end product. This first rose I planted was the Queen of Sweden rose. That's the variety. I won't show you each rose being planted. That's kind of boring, but I will walk you down the aisle. Walk down the aisle with me. Isn't that cute? Walk down the aisle with me and look at the pictures on the screen of what each one will look like and the color fade that I will have going on. I'm just so excited. It's going to be so pretty. I haven't color blocked like this in the past. I want to do a lot more of it in the garden this year, getting that nice, gorgeous rainbow effect. It's going to be so pretty. Here is what each aisle will look like, each row, how it's grouped by color. In retrospect, there are a few things I would have switched around if I knew I was doing this before I planted the new ones, but I didn't, and it'll turn out beautiful. Here's a shot of the dahlia patch. You'll see that I have all of the Horta Nova netting up on the T-posts, and I can't wait for that to happen too. Those dahlias aren't color blocked, but I may move them around in the fall to get that effect. Here's an update on the sweet peas. They're looking pretty good. I'm going to take the opportunity to pinch some of these. They're looking really nice after transplanting. I've removed the double layer of frost cloth off of them, so they should be able to handle the elements. It looks like these hardened off nicely. They're nice and green. They didn't turn yellow, and they're still growing. So I'm going to pinch these probably close to above the second set of true leaves. I'll put some images up on the screen of the varieties. I have Piggy Sue from Floret. I also have Lisbeth from Floret. I'm so excited to grow these Floret seeds this year. And then I also have a mix from Johnny's called Mammoth Choice. My sweet pea seeds from Johnny's are at least 3 years old, and they're still germinating and doing well. So if you store your seeds right, they should last you more than just one growing season. The germination rates may go a little lower, but they still should be fine if you're storing them in a cool, dark place and not letting them get wet and things like that. Here's an update on the snapdragons. They're almost reaching the netting. And I don't know if I've shown you a video of all the netting since I put it up, but I do have some form of support on every single garden bed now. Whether that is the green wire or Horta Nova netting, just a mishmash of things that I had. The eucalyptus that I'm overwintering still looks really good. I also have some thyme in this bed that I'm going to heavily prune back. I'm teaching a flower crown class in a week, and we're going to make herb crowns since I don't have flowers ready, and those are going to be so fun. They'll be seasonal. These anemones I transplanted from one bed to another, so these blooms are right at the soil level. I don't know if I cut these off, if they'll send up taller flower spikes or not. This was just kind of an experiment to see what this anemone would do after I moved it. I do have some ferns looking okay underneath the cold damage. I can prune these back and they'll rebound just fine. My blueberry plants are setting flowers. That's super exciting. And then finally, I do have 2 Lenten rose plants. I kind of forgot about these. They're right off the patio, but they have so many blooms on them. So pretty. I think I'm going to cut these and put them in arrangements. I've never worked with these before as cut flowers, but I know that you can. Well, that is all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, give me a thumbs up. And the best way you can support me and my channel is to subscribe and share it with your flower-loving friends. I love reading all of your comments, and I love responding to them and have a conversation with you. So again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.